Every December, one college football player walks across the stage in New York City and joins the most exclusive club in sports. But here's the thing. Not all Heisman seasons are created equal. Some guys will win it in a close race. Others will put up numbers so ridiculous that we're still talking about them decades later. Today, we're counting down the 10 greatest Heisman Trophy seasons of all time. Stat lines that broke record books, moments that became legend, and a number one that might honestly never be touched. Quick favor before we dive in, I just started this channel, so if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, because we've got a lot more college football and pro football countdowns coming in the near future. Alright, let's get into it. At number 10, we have Baker Mayfield at Oklahoma in 2017. We start this list with the most polarizing name. Baker Mayfield's 2017 season had everything. Elite production and non-stop drama. He walked into the Horseshoe in September and torched Ohio State for 386 yards and 3 scores. Then, he made headlines by planting the Oklahoma flag right in the middle of the Buckeyes logo. Later that year, he was apologizing again for his well-known antics against Kansas. This guy lived rent-free in the media's heads all season. But between all the controversies, he was surgical. A school record 598 passing yards against Oklahoma State, over 4,600 yards and 43 touchdowns on the year while dragging the Sooners to the Big 12 title game. And here's the part that makes it historic. Baker started his career as a walk-on. No walk-on had ever won the Heisman before him. A chip on his shoulder and a trophy in his hands. At number 9, we have Derrick Henry at Alabama in 2015. From flashy to physical, Derrick Henry was a wrecking ball in 2015. 6'3", 240 pounds, and Alabama just kept feeding him. 393 carries. That's about 26 a game. Defenses didn't stop Derrick Henry. They would just get slowly worn down by him. He led the entire country in carries, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns. He scored in all 14 of Alabama's wins. And he broke a record that stood since Herschel Walker, the SEC single-season rushing mark, finishing with 2,219 yards and 28 touchdowns. His signature moment? The Iron Bowl. 48 carries, 271 yards. That's not a stat line, that's a demolition. And for the cherry on top, a month after picking up his trophy, he scored 3 touchdowns in the national title game against Clemson. At number 8, we have Marcus Mariota at Oregon in 2014. If Derrick Henry was a sledgehammer, then Marcus Mariota was a scalpel. The Oregon quarterback led the nation in passing touchdowns, passing efficiency, and total offense in 2014. 4,454 yards through the air, 42 touchdown passes, and 15 more scores on the ground. But the number that really tells the story? 4. That's how many interceptions he threw all season. 42 touchdowns, 4 picks. That's one of the cleanest ratios college football has ever seen. He threw multiple touchdowns in every single game and led the Ducks to a 13-2 record and a spot in the national title game. He also made history as the first Hawaiian-born player to win the award. Smooth, efficient, and basically mistake-free, that was Mariota's Heisman run. At number 7, we have Ricky Williams at Texas in 1998. Ricky Williams didn't have to come back for his senior year. He already won the Doak Walker Award, and the NFL was waiting. He came back to Austin with one goal in mind, and that was to win the Heisman Trophy. And he chased down just about every record in the book doing it. 6 touchdowns in the season opener. Passed Earl Campbell as Texas's all-time leading rusher the next week. And then a 350-yard game against Iowa State, which was a school record, in the same game where he set the NCAA career touchdown mark. And then, the storybook ending. Against Texas A&M, he broke Tony Dorsett's all-time rushing record, a record that had stood for over 20 years, on a 60-yard touchdown run. He finished with 2,184 yards, 27 scores, and one of the most lopsided Heisman votes ever. Bet on yourself and cash in. That's what Ricky Williams did. At number 6, we have Tim Tebow, Florida in 2007. Tim Tebow showed up in Gainesville as one of the most hyped recruits ever. He won a ring as a role player in 2006, and then he took over as the starter in 2007 and somehow exceeded the hype. That season, Tebow became the first player in FBS history to throw for 20 touchdowns and run for 20 touchdowns in the same year. And he didn't just clear that bar, he smashed it. 32 passing touchdowns and 23 rushing. Over 3,200 yards in the air and almost 900 on the ground. And he did this as a sophomore. The moment everyone remembers was against Florida State. Tebow escapes the stack, and instead of sliding, he runs over 4 Seminole defenders on his way to the end zone. That run basically stamped his ticket to New York. He became the first sophomore to ever win the award, and the dual-threat quarterback era was officially here. At number 5, we have Marcus Allen at USC in 1981. USC was a running back factory. Mike Garrett, O.J. Simpson, Charles White, all Heisman winners in a 16-year window. But the best season of the whole Trojan bunch belongs to Marcus Allen in 1981. He led the nation in rushing with 2,342 yards. He led it in touchdowns with 22, and he led it in yards per game at 212. He went over 200 yards on the ground 8 times that season, which was an NCAA record. He also set 14 records along the way, including the single-season rushing mark. And here's a piece of trivia for you. Marcus Allen is still the only player in football history to win a college football national championship, a Heisman Trophy, a Super Bowl, an NFL MVP, and a Super Bowl MVP. The 1981 season kicked off the most complete trophy case the sport has ever seen. At number 4, we have Lamar Jackson at Louisville in 2016. Lamar Jackson's rushing numbers alone in 2016 were 1,571 yards and 21 touchdowns. This would have put him in the Heisman conversation, and this was only half of what he did. As a sophomore, he threw for over 3,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. You do the math. You get a guy averaging 121 rushing yards a game and 280 passing yards. Yeah, every single game. And nobody made highlights like Lamar. The defining image of that season is the Heisman hurdle. Jackson going full airborne over a Syracuse defender in the end zone on a Friday night national broadcast. That's the kind of play that wins you a trophy in real time. Louisville faded late in the year, but Lamar's electricity was undeniable. We all know what he went on to become on Sundays. We have Cam Newton at Auburn in 2010. Now, Cam's raw numbers are a tick below Lamar's, but here's the difference. Cam did it while carrying Auburn to a perfect season and a national championship. 1 year at Auburn, one legendary run, almost 2,900 passing yards, almost 1,500 rushing yards, which was a record for a quarterback at a school known for its legendary runners. 51 total touchdowns, 30 passing, 20 rushing, and 1 receiving, because why not? All while completing 66% of his passes. And when it mattered most, the Fiesta Bowl, Oregon, with the title on the line, Cam marched Auburn 77 yards in the final 2.5 minutes to set up the championship-winning score. 1 season on campus, 1 Heisman, 1 national title. Cam Newton. At number 2, we have Joe Burrow at LSU in 2019. Here's a stat that breaks my brain. Joe Burrow accounted for 75 touchdowns in 2019, 60 passing, 15 rushing. That year, only 12 teams in all of college football scored 75 or more. Joe Burrow matched the output of entire rosters. He completed 76% of his passes. He threw for 5,671 yards and led an LSU offense that has a real claim as the greatest in college football history. They went undefeated and won the national championship. And when the votes were counted, Burrow won the Heisman by the largest margin ever, the most dominant landslide in the history of the award. So how does this season not land at number 1? Well, it's because at number 1, we have Barry Sanders at Oklahoma State in 1988. What Barry did at Oklahoma State in 1988 is the single greatest individual season in college football history. Full stop. 238.9 rushing yards per game. He scored 37 rushing touchdowns, caught a touchdown, and returned to kickoff and punt for scores. His regular season totals of 2,628 rushing yards is still the NCAA record almost 40 years later. And it gets crazier. The bowl game stats didn't even count towards official records during that time. Barry went out in the Holiday Bowl and dropped another 222 yards and 5 touchdowns against Wyoming. You add it all up, 2,850 yards and 44 touchdowns in just 12 games. That's a Hall of Fame career for some players, and Barry did it in 1 season, in an era where every defense knew exactly who was getting the ball. He's untouchable, number 1, and it's not close. So that's the list, but I know you have opinions. Does Joe Burrow deserve the top spot over Barry? Who's your guy? Drop your rankings in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, and like I said, this was my first video, and I'll be making more in the future, college football and pro football, so hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.